Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly,
he's our
dad who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, let me say good afternoon to all of my brothers and sisters across our beloved Zion, known as the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. I am Skip Mason, pastor of the West Mitchell Street CME Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am very pleased to bring to you another conversation with one of our distinguished and esteemed Episcopal leaders. This afternoon, I have the pleasure of sharing some time with Bishop James B. Walker, the 56th Bishop of the CME Church. But I'm going to bring Bishop Walker up in just a moment. I would like for you, if you would, to take a few moments and to host a watch party on Facebook, to hit the watch button and to share with others, and to also share it on other pages as we invite our CME brothers and sisters and those who are on Facebook and YouTube to come and to share in what will be, I think, a wonderful conversation with Bishop Walker. Let me also begin this broadcast by acknowledging and continuing to lift up Lady Clarice Flates Cunningham, and certainly as the church and family said farewell until we meet again on this past Friday in a wonderful celebration that I had an opportunity to watch via Facebook as well. And so we send our love to you, Lady Clarice, and pray that God will comfort you and your daughter and the rest of the Flake and Cunningham family. This has been a tremendous week of events and activities in our life and history, and so much is going on in our world. And I'm just grateful that you take a little time out on Sunday to spend with me and one of our bishops as we hear their story, as we celebrate the 150th anniversary of our church. Don't leave at the end, because I want to share with you the other conversations that I'm having this week. This is Father's Day week, and I have a conversation Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with some of the families of our bishops who are no longer with us in the flesh. So please don't leave. I'll share that with you momentarily. But it is now my joy and my delight to welcome to a conversation the 56th Bishop of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church, Bishop James B. Walker, all the way from Bowley, Oklahoma. Bishop Walker, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. It's good to be with you, and thank you very much for providing this wonderful service for the CME Church.
Well, thank you, Bishop, and I really appreciate your support and effort. In fact, Dr. Teresa Duhart, who we all owe a debt of gratitude to for just so many wonderful things that she does, approached you and Bishop Brown about my utilizing the CME Church Facebook pages and other websites. And so I'm appreciative to you for your support. And it has been fun to be able to share with these bishops. And I've been looking forward to this conversation with you, because I have been so fascinated, Bishop, like many others, I guess, who study history, about those all Black towns in Oklahoma. And so I cannot wait to hear you share your story about your family and how they got to Oklahoma. I'm going to put this picture up, Bishop. I think this should be the starting point to kind of help us to weave your story. This is your grandfather, the Reverend Oliver, I think it's Wiley Walker. Can you tell us a little bit about him? And I believe he was born in Arkansas and then migrated to Oklahoma. Let's start with him as we try to weave your story, if that's okay with you.
I've tried to go back on my grandfather, but there's not much, there's not a lot that I can get other than his brothers.
Yes.
But Yes, he came from Arkansas, CME preacher, a person who graduated the 8th grade, and that earned him the title Professor Walker.
Wow.
So as you see him dressed there, according to my father, that would be the way he would be dressed pretty much every day. And as we grew up, he was retired. He lived on a plot of land that was provided to him by my father and his older brother.
Okay.
And my father took care of my grandfather. And so every day that I saw him, there was a suit coat, even if it was overalls. He believed and understood himself to be a preacher.
Yes, sir.
And so that meant professional. So now, after I finish talking about him, I think I'll take off this suit coat. But while I'm talking about him, I think I should have it on because that's the person he was. And he was known, ironically, as a singer.
Okay.
He was a great soloist. I'm told that when the crowd would see him coming to the church, there would be a hush across the crowd because they would say, "Oh, Pastor Walker, Professor Walker is going to sing."
Oh, wow.
And I heard him once try to teach singing the do re mi style. And those of you who know me are laughing right now because you know none of that DNA rubbed off on me.
Bishop, you can't sing. I thought you were an excellent singer, Bishop. I thought that you were.
I am, as long as I'm singing low enough for only me to hear.
So your grandfather, and this is your grandmother as well. Did you know your grandmother?
I knew of my grandmother. I was holding her hand when she died.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so, but we never had real conversations
Sure.
that I recall. I was a little too young.
Right.
She passed away before he passed.
Okay.
I know more of her history. We can go all the way back to slavery with my grandmother. And my grandmother was the daughter of Richard Watts, and he was killed. Two white men rode upon him while he was planting or doing something on his farm.
Oh, my goodness.
And they indicated their desire for his daughters to rape his daughters. And he told them in no
Uncertain terms.
he told them what they needed to know to leave,
My goodness.
and went to town and bought bullets to make sure he could protect his family. And that night, as I understand it, his wife and he himself were murdered by the rapist. My grandmother and her three sisters all had speech, I would say variations, impediments. The speech was a little difficult to understand. When we found out the backstory, we figured that it was either the speech issue was either due to one or two things. Either it was due to some form of mutilation by these rapists and murderers, or it was perhaps due to a language issue because she was Black as well as Indian.
As Indian as well. Now, did your grandparents meet in Arkansas and then travel to Oklahoma?
That's my understanding.
Your understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
But she was from Louisiana.
She was from Louisiana.
Yeah. She's from the Mighty Fourth. She's from CME country. She's from Homer, Louisiana. Louisiana. Yeah, she's from Homer, Louisiana.
And so they met and married, and they lived in Boley. And I put this up because, as I've done with all of the other bishops, just to give us a frame of reference of where Boley is located. But even this map here, Bishop, gives us a sighting of all of the towns, all of the African American towns, black owned towns, Boley and Redbird, Langston, and Clearview. I'm sure you're very familiar with many of these towns.
As a matter of fact, my grandfather spent a good deal of his life in Clearview. But yes, let's see. My favorite one, I don't know if it's on there. Is Slick on there? Slick,
Slick.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
I
mean,
don't see Slick on this particular map.
I always wanted to be from Slick, Oklahoma
Really?
until I went there. Yeah, but it was the coolest name of any town. You could have, you know. So yeah, those were towns that really, I think, they gave hope to people.
Yes, sir.
Because when that migration was going north, all of it didn't necessarily go north. Some of it went a bit southwest, because there were a lot of people from the south who migrated to places like Boley. And
Right.
they were under great great oppression. I hate to say that, but they were under great oppression from the Indians, as well as from the African Americans who were mixed in with the Indians. I should say Native Americans in that area.
So they had challenges as well. What do you think drew them there? Was it the independence of being a Black-owned town? Did your father ever talk about, why they ended up in Boley?
Well, there are all kinds of stories that you read, but the main thing is that land was available.
Okay.
African Americans were being encouraged to settle there. It was the Dust Bowl. It needed people to settle it.
Yes, sir.
But we were being encouraged to settle there. And also places in those areas were being considered as sort of a great experiment, how African Americans could self-govern and so forth and so on. So
Right.
they offered food, they offered everything but lodging. You had to figure out lodging for yourself. And interesting. So that's a church there. I don't know which, but the interesting thing is that the persons who settled Boley, a lot of the persons who came from the South there, they were attacked, and in their gatherings, and especially in church, in evening services, a church service could be interrupted by gunshots.
Really?
Sometimes people would come to the door. That was way, way, way back in the day. But sometimes, you read reports and studying the history of Boley, that
Yes,
sometimes a gunman would come to the door and fire weapons, and people had to jump out of the church windows and so forth. So it was real. It was real.
I I don't know why I thought that it was perhaps a safe haven away from the viciousness and the crime, but obviously you got a town full of Black people who are doing fairly well on their own land and banks and stores. I guess that would be a threat.
Well, yeah, what you did was, the people who traveled in these instances were not necessarily the poorest of the poor.
Right.
But they were the persons who had the wherewithal to figure out, in some instances, the wherewithal to figure out how to travel.
Yes,
how
sir.
to get from point A to point B. So they, in some instances, had knowledge of how to make it, had dreams of businesses and so forth. And so they were in fact displacing, in some instances, displacing the current population, bringing in business skills and other things that people there didn't necessarily have. That's my understanding.
I see.
So, yeah.
Bishop, tell us about your dad.
Wow, you got some great pictures.
I did a little digging also.
That's my guy.
Yeah.
That's my guy. My father was not a tall man, but a well put together man. I admired him for his physique throughout his entire life. Unfortunately for me, he inspires me so forth, because I don't think I never saw that midriff bulge on him.
Okay.
Yeah, so he always had a man's physique.
Yeah.
He became very ill at early on in my life and went down to about 85 pounds. It was believed that he was going to die.
Oh, wow.
But he made it through that point. We struggled during that period,
Mm-hmm.
but what he had done in purchasing a farm and having animals on the farm,
Yeah.
in planting fruit trees, and teaching us how to work the land. I wasn't old enough to do it. My older brothers did all that needed to be done during that time, but he and my mother planned and worked everything together.
Mm-hmm.
That's Emma B. Walker right there.
That's
John
your mother.
Blair's right beside her. And that's when she was 112 without the 12 that she gave birth to.
Oh, wow.
But they planned everything together.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to get married. I was wanting to get married probably when I was 7, 8 years old, because I watched them, and
Really?
they did everything together. Man, they went shopping together. They did their budget together. I sat down, listened to the budget, heard how much money they had, how much,
Mm-hmm.
what they were planning on saving. I remember when the saving was $5 a month, and yet they saved it. We were poor, but we were what I would call no drama poor.
Okay.
Because, I don't remember I don't remember being evicted from any place. I don't have any stories about being hungry.
Yes.
I don't have any stories about the lights being off or somebody coming to pick up the car. They bought what they could afford, and they afforded what they bought. And they planned it ahead of time. And consequently, there was very little money left to just do extraneous things with.
Mm-hmm.
But we never suffered. I remember somebody saying that they fed our family and so forth and so on. And all I could do to respond to that kind of nonsense was say, that's a nice dream. And if you need your father or your mother to be a hero by saying that they fed our family, that's fine. But the only heroes that I know in that regard are Emma B. and JP. They took care of us from day one until we left.
Wow.
And they handled their business. And as a matter of fact, we had a lake where we went fishing. My brothers went swimming, and I watched out for them to learn how to swim. I had to be the lookout man. I remember life being very peaceful, and they rarely argued, and I saw my mother cry once. I probably shouldn't tell this, but she did cry once, and I wondered what was wrong. Here we were. We had lived in this older house all of our lives. I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school. Dad had managed to build this new house. And I said, man, why are they arguing now? And why is mother crying? I mean, this is something that I never saw. So I remember it.
Yeah.
And we found out that Dad wanted to build himself a picket fence around her new house. And when we saw what he was building, we all cried right along with my mother.
Really?
It was so horrible. But God is a good God. God is a good God. He took that picket fence. Oklahoma's a windy place. And every year, at least once a year, God would send a wind to blow down the fence. And finally, my father realized that mother was right. And he let that crazy picket fence. That was the only thing that I knew that he did. He not only had her crying, he had all of us crying. We were like, oh no, it's a new house. This fence is horrible.
Oh my goodness, that is something.
Yeah.
Well,
he dreamed of his white picket fence.
Yeah, he wanted that picket fence. I tell you.
That's right.
Yeah, you grew up around a number of siblings. Were you number 10? I believe I read.
I'm number 10. Yes.
Number 10. So tell me, Bishop, what was it like being number 10 and having all of those older sisters and brothers? And I'm sure there was always a lot of activity going on with the family. To say the least.
It was if you were from a small family, you had issues when you came to our house. There was lots of laughter, lots of movement, lots of fun going on, and lots of food, things of that nature. So Ironically, we had a 3-bedroom home.
Okay.
My father and mother, their bedroom was right by the front door, and the back door was locked. So whenever you went out at night or in the evening, you had to come in one way.
Okay.
So consequently, we didn't take up with drinking or smoking. We had one entrance that we had to go through, and my father slept right by the door.
Wow.
So he handled his business in that way, kept
Yeah.
us under control. But it was six boys, maybe 4 at a time in one room. And in some instances, maybe, I remember when we got bunk beds, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a great thing growing up in a large family.
Oh,
Very
I'm
warm,
sure.
very warm. My brothers and sisters were my tutors. Yeah,
They looked out for you and watched out for you, huh?
oh yes,
Yeah.
oh yeah. I'm gonna take off my
Yes,
coat here.
please do. Please do. Get
All right.
comfortable. So Bishop, tell us about this little lad right here. What was
Oh,
going on in his mind and thoughts? And I believe, had you been called to the ministry by this age?
that's my 8th grade photo.
Okay.
So by then I was an experienced preacher, man. I had stopped, how they say, I don't go where I used to go. The things I used to do, I don't do no more.
Right.
At that age, I didn't do the things I used to do. When I first started preaching, I would carry my toys with me to the church, wherever I was going to preach. I would carry my cap guns with me. But at that age, I gotten over cap guns, I gotten over toys. And I'd stopped crying when I preached. That's probably right around the age when I was called to preach. I was around 9 years of age. It's a little before that time, but not long. But that's Lane Chapel CME Church. And that's to when I'm looking at the screen to my right, that's Reverend Morrow at the
Okay.
time. What a man, what a pastor. He was somebody. That's to the far left of my screen. That's Teresa Hubbard. And she
Okay.
was a preacher and my Sunday school teacher.
Oh, wow.
And next to her is Mrs. Spann. And there's a funny story about Reverend Hubbard. Reverend Hubbard, my father ran revivals every year like everybody else. All the preachers supported each other
Yes, sir.
until the year he invited her to preach the revival. None of his boys came to the revival that year. It made him so mad that what he decided to do was invite her to preach every single year
Oh, my
and
goodness.
go to their churches and announce that she was going to be his evangelist. And he said, I know you're not going to come, but that's going to be my evangelist. She developed a following, and subsequently, she was a CME.
Okay.
Subsequently, she started the largest church in Boley, Oklahoma. She developed this large following. Our revivals went to small and puny to large revivals. She developed this
Wow.
following, and my father was adamant. He was a womanist before they ever talked about
Before they even
it.
before they even dreamt of having preachers who would be so bold and in supporting women preachers.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, he went all the way. He wouldn't have anybody else run his revival, just her. Every year.
That
Every
is something else.
year.
So you went to school in Bowling,
Yes.
and it was a segregated school.
Yes.
Okay. How was the quality of your education in elementary and high school, Bishop?
Well, the man in the top left, when I was at Sand Creek Elementary School, the man in the top left was a teacher that was hired by my father at Sand Creek Elementary School, and he was subsequently hired when they closed Sand Creek School and merged it with Boley High School, and his name is Mr. Spann. So
Mr.
Samuel Spann. And so Samuel Spann was a great teacher. In the 8th grade, he pulled out college textbooks and told us that he was going to barbecue our brain, I think was the word he used. He said, but you're going to learn what it takes to, you're going to learn what the college students learn, and you're going to learn it now. And I thought it was a joke. It was very serious. And when I went to college, I saw some of the same things that I'd seen in the 8th grade.
Wow.
He was a very serious teacher and extremely qualified. I felt that way through most of my elementary and high school education. When I went to Sanctuary School, of course, I was the only person in the 1st grade. There were 2 of us in the 2nd grade. How much would you pay now for your child to receive that kind of education?
I know, a lot. Trust me.
So it was fine. It was, colorism was
Yeah.
a thing, and unfortunately, I was on the wrong end of that spectrum. But I would say it was fortunate because that really taught us how to manage. Some of the teachers had a little bit of colorism in them. Some of the administrators had that in them. But that was all over the world.
Oh,
And
sure.
it got us ready for the world.
Yeah, it
Got us
did.
ready for the world.
It
Yeah.
did. Well, Bishop, I want to go back to your calling, because 9 years old, that is a remarkable act of God to call you. How did you know? Would you just kind of, you don't mind, share a little bit about your call story and how you knew at the age of 9 that you wanted to preach?
I'd had a number of dreams about preaching. I, I felt that that's what I wanted to be. When people would ask, "What do you want to be?"
Mm-hmm.
Preacher was one of the things that I felt that I wanted to be. I also sensed the presence of God in my life, and because of my father, prayer meetings in the home and things like that. I was exposed to religion in an intimate kind of way.
Yes.
So faith was kind of a regular part of my life, and it didn't sound strange to me that I was being called to preach. I didn't know it was strange until I expressed that to other people.
Right. Right.
Now, my mother reacted with fear and trembling
Did she?
when I told. She was the first person I told, and when I told her, it was fear and trembling. She really felt for me because she knew what it was like, and it was an old no response.
Mm-hmm.
Lovingly so, but oh
Yeah.
no. My father reacted in an inquisitive kind of way,
Okay.
kind of questioning me about, was this what I really felt? Was this what I really thought? Was this what I really believed? He talked to me for a little while, and he said, just leave the boy alone. He's called to preach.
Mm.
And I'm thankful for my father and my mother, how they handled it. I'm thankful that they allowed me to go through my childhood as a child.
Okay.
There was a boy preacher that was invited to Boley, Oklahoma. He was preaching at our church. I was so excited. I could not wait to get there to see this guy, to meet him, to talk to him, somebody like me. And I went, and he had a Bible. It was about that thick. It was about big as a fist.
Yes.
That was under his arm. He had a 3-piece suit. He had eyeglasses he had a cross on, and I never met him. I didn't talk to him. I just looked at him, and he looked like a mannequin. He looked like a spectacle. And what he delivered, I think it was profound. People were excited about it, but I knew that wasn't his. And that was very upsetting to me. I didn't know how to appreciate that my parents would let me go to an engagement. I went to one engagement. The preacher told them, you all need to say amen when this boy preaches.
Right.
Because he's the only preacher that I know that has ever gotten a pulpit with 2 guns in his pocket. But they would allow me to do that. And they wouldn't accept instructions from other people about how I was to be and how I was to behave.
Okay.
When I was a boy, learning to like girls, folk would, you're supposed to be a preacher. And my father would come back, or my mother would say, "You are a preacher, and you like girls. That's fine." You know. And so that's yeah. They made a haven for me. So, but I had a few fights about being a preacher. Yeah, I would go there, and had a lot of teasing that went
Sure.
on later in life, and I learned to accept it and to deal with it. Yeah,
Yeah, kids can be kind of cruel at
yeah.
times, you know. How about your siblings? What was their response to your accepting the call? You were just still their brother.
Uh, Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was never reverend, never preacher,
Yeah.
never anything of that nature. And maybe a few days after my calling, Oliver Dwayne was called.
Okay.
So he had been called prior to me, but he was older, 8 years
Okay.
older. So he didn't accept the calling right away. God called me where yes was about the only thing I was inclined to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad he did. And Oliver thought about it really deeply, watched me go through some of the process, and
Okay.
then acknowledged that he had been called as well. So then at that point, it became because Oliver Dwayne is like a he at that time he was like a favorite son, and
Okay.
I will say that is the case because we all had a way of looking up to him,
Right.
and still do. Yeah,
Let's see.
yeah.
I think this is
So
a picture of you and some of your brothers and cousins.
that's right.
Yeah.
All of those brothers, you see Ronald Walker, who is the National Youth and Young Adult President.
Yeah.
And then you see the other fair-skinned brother, my oldest brother, in the middle. If you take out those two persons, or if you just set them aside, everybody else in that picture is a preacher.
Wow.
All of my brothers, Anthony Walker, who is on the far left, built a church. Clint Walker, my youngest brother, next to Anthony, built a church, CME Church.
Hmm.
I built a CME church.
Yes.
My cousin at the back founded his church and purchased a large campus in Lithonia, Georgia. And Dwayne Walker didn't build a church, but purchased one. And then my father, sitting there on the bottom row, he built a church. And then that's my Uncle B, who pastored in the first Episcopal District and even pastored Mother Liberty CME Church.
Wow.
So in my cousin's hand, if I'm not mistaken, that's his son, who also became a preacher, if I'm not mistaken.
I had no idea. That's Reverend Woodrow Walker.
That's Woodrow.
I
Woody.
had no idea that was your cousin.
Is that, you know, Woody?
Yes, yes. I never made the connection.
Yeah.
What a small world.
Well, then, I mean, when I say he has a campus, that's a campus.
He has a campus. Yeah, yes,
Yeah, that's a
indeed.
campus.
And so
Started that.
his father and your father were brothers.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Wow, that's an incredible legacy.
Oh, good.
So Bishop, and first of all, let me pause for a second because as I'm looking, and there's so many messages of support and folks are watching, but this one I need to put up. This is someone you know,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
she's
Yeah.
greeting me, so I have to stop and say hello to Sister Dolores Walker and send her greetings. And also, she and my mother share the same name, Dolores. So, Sister Walker, so glad to have you with us, and so glad that you're sharing in with us, Bishop. I know you were just on the phone with her, but you want to say anything to her?
Well, that's my partner, friend of 40 years,
Yes.
and so we've been through it all. Dolores was willing to leave her job. We both had jobs at Southwestern Bell, and she was willing to leave, and it was at a moment's notice. So she became a CME very quickly, indoctrinated. So she left for Atlanta, Georgia, to stay in a one-room apartment. But I promised her that I would look out for her, and then I would do what was right. And so I've been trying to do that for the last 40 years. I hope I've a halfway decent job.
Well, we're so delighted that she's on, and Mama O.C. Hart is on as well.
Oh,
And
yes.
yes, want to say hello to her.
Well,
And
see, OC and Bishop Hoyt were the reason why I came to Hartford, Connecticut.
okay,
Yeah. So
yeah,
when I found out, when I was offered opportunity to come to the seventh, I was offered a number of different places. So I decided, hey, Hartford, Connecticut was the place that Bishop Ori Broomfield, and that's Bishop Hoyt,
mm-hmm,
that was the place where Bishop Broomfield said it had great potential, but we really didn't have at that time a pastor who had asked to go there. So
okay,
I knew Broomfield, and I
yeah,
knew that Bishop Broomfield knew church.
yes, sir,
And when he said great potential, I went, and that's what I asked for, because when I graduated ITC, my Bishop Cummings had passed away.
okay,
Whatever the plans were for me sort of evaporated with
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And graduation meant, it's kind of, you fish for where you might end up.
yeah,
So I simply asked Bishop Broomfield, did he have a place that he felt like had great potential? And, because I was kind of at the end of the pickings, I basically asked him to, place that had great potential, but nobody else wanted to go. And I said that because I didn't want to, the kind of churches that I was in line for were small, and I
okay,
didn't want to see anybody have to be moved. I wanted a place where no one had to be moved for me to go, since I was going to go to a small church.
sure,
Yeah.
sure. Bishop, let me ask you this, and while before I do that, let me also acknowledge and let you know that Senior Bishop Reddick and Mrs. Reddick are watching uh, this broadcast as well.
All right. My senior and my first lady, thank you so much for taking time. And I know that this has been not only a busy weekend for the senior, but it's been an emotional weekend for the senior,
Yes, sir.
because the weight that's on his shoulders is experienced by him and him alone. So I know that he takes that in a very to heart when
Yes,
we
sir.
lose one of our brothers. And so
Yes,
he did a wonderful job, and I want to
yes,
thank
indeed.
him for that, with
Yes,
Bishop Ronald M. Cunningham.
yes, indeed. So, Bishop, when did you receive your license? When were you ordained, and who ordained you?
Bishop Norris S. Um, um,
Curry.
Curry is the person who ordained me,
Okay.
and it, I pastored from 74 to 77, I believe, without an ordination.
You did. Okay.
Yes. Even though I've been preaching for a long time,
Right.
um, I was not ordained, and it really didn't bother me.
Okay.
I don't know why, but I was at peace with it. So we managed to get by communion and things like that.
Yeah.
I write my name now like my father writes his name,
Okay.
because my handwriting looks almost exactly like his used to. Because he told me to use his name and his number when I married people. So that would enable me to marry people. So his page number, I believe, was 329, or his book number was 329. I would
Mm-hmm.
sign my name. I would sign the B in a way that looked like a J. Now I'm scaring some people right now because they know I married them during that time. But I did it with his with his approval.
Bishop, I found this document as I was preparing for the show. I don't know whether you've seen it, but this is the World War II draft registration card for your father.
Yeah.
And all black men had to register, whether they were selected or not. And it has his signature on it. I pulled it up because you mentioned the signature
Uh-huh.
as well. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to share this with you because
Well,
people who are doing family history research, this is a wonderful document to have.
that is a really wonderful document to have, because um, that's not his signature.
That's not his. Oh my.
He's not a junior.
And
But
actually, you're right. It says it says registered signature, so somebody signed it.
well, let me tell you what's going on there. There's a
Okay.
lot of pressure that's happening there. Now, this is what I believe. I don't believe that's his signature. And but here's what I believe happened. Here's what I know was going on.
Okay.
What went on at that time is my father was drafted,
Okay.
and his brother was volunteering.
Oh.
So his brother was preparing to volunteer, and my father gets a draft notice. And his brother, according to my father, takes it out of his hand and says, "John, please don't worry about it. These white people don't know one of us from another." And he took it and he said, "I'm going anyway." He said, "So I'll just go in your name. You don't have
Oh,
to go."
wow.
And so that's what one brother did for another brother. But I imagine when he gets down, I'm just imagining when he gets down in front of all of, I imagine that all kind of stuff is going through him, and he's saying, "Lord, what have I done?"
So did he go on in your father's
He
name?
went. He
He
went. He
did.
was buried as John Ples Walker. There is a grave right now that you could go to in Oklahoma City, John Ples Walker.
And that's your uncle.
That's my uncle, George Walker.
Wow.
Sometimes racism, if you use it, can work out to
Yes,
you know,
indeed.
but that's that's my father said. He told him, he said, he just snatched it out. He says, "Don't worry about it, brother. John Ples, don't worry about it. These white people don't know one of us from the next." But when I saw it, it's the only thing I could think of.
So that may be your uncle's signature.
That may be my uncle's signature, and it may be that he was nervous. It
Wow.
may be, because I don't know where the junior comes from.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or it may be that they put junior,
Okay.
and you don't argue with them.
No, you didn't argue with them.
Yeah,
And that's also why many families have variations in spelling, last names.
that's
Because
right.
the person, usually a white clerk, would spell it the way that they knew. And sometimes some families did not really know how to spell, the name. And so you get a lot of that historically. But that's a great story. And I'm sure a lot of family members have similar types of stories. So you graduate from high school and then you head on. And before you do that, were you preaching much in high school? Did you get opportunities to preach?
Yeah, a lot. Oh, I should also say that my father and his brother were married to my mother and her sister. So they were really,
Wow.
really close.
Wow.
Did I preach a lot? Yes. My father made sure, he told me around 14 years of age,
Hmm.
I left Amos Temple, went back to his church.
Okay.
And traveled with him, circuit maybe 125 was the furthest distance, and then 25 miles was the second. But he let me know, "You're my son, I love you," and blah, blah, blah. But this pulpit belongs to me. We need to find you a place to preach, because the only way you're gonna learn to preach is by preaching, but you
Sure.
won't be doing it here. And so
He made that real clear, huh?
yes, he let me know, "You're a son, but you won't be doing it here. Maybe you'll get up once a year, maybe twice, but there will be no rotation and all that kind of stuff. We aren't doing that,
Wow.
because I'm assigned here. This is my church."
Sure.
Very, very good pastor. I mean, very good pastor, but he took it seriously.
Yeah.
And he found a place for me. I preached at the nursing home in Boley
Okay.
every second Sunday. I was afraid to go there initially.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah, because uh, I was a kid. Everybody
Yeah.
was older,
Right.
and
Right.
and people were ill, and I didn't understand it. So then finally I related, because there were people there who tried to encourage me, and they loved seeing a kid, and that was something that was great for them, and then it became something great for me to be associated with elders. And one day, I don't mean this as making fun of the condition, but
Hmm.
it highlights the ignorance that a child could have, the innocence, I will say, as well. A person began to move rather violently as I was preaching. I thought that, man, this sermon is really good. And then I realized that he was having a seizure. And so
During
I
your
thought it
sermon.
was, I thought it was my first shout, but it was not. So I learned the difference between a seizure and a shout.
And a shout. Wow.
Yeah.
That'll
So
preach too, Bishop. That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
That is good. So you entered the great Langston University. What were those years like for you?
Uh, Langston University was character formation. From getting serious with study.
Yes.
Because I didn't want my father and mother. They were not struggling at the time.
Okay.
They were doing all right because he had managed to get over the disability hump and get employment. So they were secure, but I didn't really want them to pay for my college education.
Okay.
So I figured out pretty soon that high grades were the key, that if I could keep a straight A average or as close to it, that I would have all my tuition paid for. I was assigned at a church, and I realized that I could take those funds and do for me the extras that I needed. And so it was character formation and character building. I pledged Alpha, but what I have to say in terms of character is I have one last hump to overcome. Oh man, that's my that's
your group.
that's my
Yeah.
boys. That's my boys. That's Utopia 23. That's what that is. Yeah, that's
Wow.
what that is. Oh wow, you found that. Wow. That's Poison. And I think that's me on the top of the top of the car there, on top of the yeah, I stood next to Poison when we were being initiated as Sphinxmen.
Okay.
And Poison made noise. And after that, I tried not to ever stand by Poison again. You don't make noise. You don't make noise.
Yeah.
But that was I was the second man on the line.
Okay.
Second man on the line.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Langston was truly character building.
I didn't graduate high school,
Yeah.
So when I did not graduate high school, I didn't plan to go to Langston.
Okay.
I was going to the Navy. I had joined. My father had a good reputation in the community, and he said, "You did what?" I said, "I joined the Navy." He said, "Don't you know you're a preacher?" I said, "Yeah, Dad, but I didn't graduate high school." And it was a bogus reason that they kept me from graduating, but I didn't graduate. I said, "So I didn't graduate high school. I got to have a plan. I can't stay here."
Right.
And so he says to me, "You are a preacher. You will go to college." And that's it. And I said, "Daddy, I've already signed up. I've already joined. This discussion is over. It's over. I've already joined." And he said, "No, it's not." And he told me, "You get in that car and you take yourself to Langston." I don't think he said it like that. He said, "You get whatever clothes you have and you take yourself to Langston and you find Dr. Holloway and you talk to him." I said, "I haven't applied. I've done nothing." And he said, one more time, and that was all he had to say, that I was going to Langston.
Wow.
So I went. He talked to the folk at where I signed up, and because he was good in the community, that was good. And the next thing you know, I'm at Langston with no high school diploma, and I tell them it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah.
I begged, I started off begging the assistant superintendent to please don't hold this against me, just allow them to release my transcript, and she wouldn't. And then finally, I just got salted with her. I said, "Okay, so you want me to hang out on the street corners with the other folk who didn't graduate high school? That's what your job is? Your job is to see to it that a person who graduates high school." I said, "I tell you what, I'm not calling you anymore. I'm not checking with you anymore. If you don't want me to go to Langston, you pull me out. You make that your job."
Wow.
And that was it. But the vice president called me in his office one day and said, "You didn't graduate, did you?" And I told him what happened. And he said, "You're not the first one. I heard this happening before." He was from Bowling.
Okay.
And he was a frat. I was not his frat at the time, but he was an alpha.
Okay.
And he told me, he said, "Son, I tell you what I can do for you, and this is all I can do. If you stay here, and if you make good grades, and if I don't hear one peep out of you, you can stay." He said, "But the first sign of trouble, you're going home at the drop of a hat, and that's it." So, so I did. I was on the president's honor roll almost every semester. I might have missed one or two, maybe.
And not
3,
only
4,
that,
8.
let me see if I can pull. You made Who's Who. Let me see if I can find this.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Who's Who. Let me put that up. James B. Walker. Reverend Walker is a senior social science major, a graduate of Boley High School, Boley, Oklahoma, and he plans to continue to preach the word of God. He is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. Well, that just sums it up.
Yeah, I remember a guy wanted to fight me at Langston. He was a football player. He would have won the fight anyway, but he was real confused why I wouldn't fight. And I said, "Man, I don't care what you do. I'm not fighting you."
You're not fighting.
And he kept challenging me, and I was like, "Man, I am not fighting you," and that's it. And I said, "I'll call the police. You can hit me if you want to. I'm not hitting you back."
Yeah.
I was doing a Martin Luther King nonviolent protest.
My goodness.
He didn't understand, but if I did one thing, I would be out.
Wow. Wow. That's an incredible story. So you graduated from Langston, and did you go straight to ITC?
I graduated from Langston in 3.5 years. When you have a sentence over your head, you want to get it. You want to
get on out of it.
Yeah. So I graduated in 3.5 years, and then I worked for a while.
Okay.
So from 77, the end of 77 to 1980, I worked at Southwestern Bell. I was accepted into I started at Southwestern Bell maybe 79 or somewhere thereabout. And I started in their management internship program.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the dude.
Mm-hmm.
So I started there and really got promoted to group manager operator services. I started off as an intern in a group manager and administrative services, and then went to operator services.
Okay.
And I met Dolores there.
That's where you met. I was going to ask you, where did you meet her?
Yeah, I met Dolores. My co-worker from operator services would come down, and she would fill in administrative services.
Okay.
And so she and I talked quite a bit. And she told me, she said, "You're looking for a wife? I need to help you find one." And so she brings down Dolores's jacket to me. She said, "Well, I know a lot of girls who work here. They're not this, they're not that." She said, but James, this one, I'm telling you, you're gonna like this one. She's a wonderful young lady, has a lot of integrity, and blah 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 blah. Wow, you did dig deep. You did dig deep. Yeah, that was Dolores made her dress, as a matter of fact.
Did she? Wow.
Yes, she made her dress.
Now, is that your father marrying the two of you?
That's my father marrying us. And he couldn't remember my name. I had to remind him because he wanted to call me by my nickname, wanted to call me by my brother's name. He was very nervous. Earth, Wind, and Fire had a concert there that night, and the traffic delayed him about an hour or so.
Oh,
it was one of the hottest. Dolores we were soaking wet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's my frat brother on the end. Also worked at Southwestern Bell. He's an engineer. And that's my brother next to him, Anthony.
What year did you all get married?
In 1980.
Yeah, the tuxedos kind of dictate the fashion.
Baby blue.
Baby blue tuxedo. So yeah. you worked for a couple of years, and then how did you decide to go to seminary? Did someone urge you? Did the bishop urge you? And who was your bishop now, Bishop Walker?
Bishop Cummings was my bishop.
Bishop James Cummings.
And my father had been telling me about seminary since I was a child. Dwayne went to seminary, so I knew I was going to go. When I worked at Southwestern Bell, it was really a great job.
Oh, I bet it was.
And it was really wonderful income. And I used it to pay off every bill that I had known to humanity.
Yeah.
And then I banked the rest. And so all I was doing was saving for the day when I would go to seminary. That's what I was doing. I purchased a new car, and but when the opportunity came for me to go to seminary in 1980, the car was paid for.
Wow.
I think I owed about $100 on it.
Okay.
And so I had money saved up.
Yeah.
And Dolores knew about it. We were planning to get married anyway, but then this seminary thing came up. Bishop Cummings just decided that I'll pay for your tuition, and I need you to go to Phillips School of Theology.
Wow.
And
what a blessing.
I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
It didn't match the salary that I was getting.
Right.
But it was my dream.
Now, you were pastoring before you left, is that correct?
I was pastoring the great Sykes CME Church, top left.
Top left.
Yeah, now that's Cross Anchor CME, and all of that work that's been done on it was done by somebody who followed me, not me. But it looked basically like that when I was there. And it was a wonderful church. It was my first church. It was about 37 people who were there on my first Sunday.
Okay.
And they warmly received me after they got over the fact that the bishop was not going to take me back.
Wow.
Because they asked him repeatedly. They called and they called, and he told me about it. He said they called and they called, and they said, take this child back. He's 18 years old. We don't need a child. We have children, and we don't need a child, and just take him back.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. They were adamant about that before I came. But when I came, I've been preaching for a long time when I came and when I preached. And my father, I didn't know what to do. I didn't watch my father in a granular way, so I didn't know what to do. And I told him that. I said, Dad, I don't know why you all gave me this church. What is I don't know what to do with a church. I don't know what to do. I haven't been following you around like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I wanted to be a preacher, but I really wanted to graduate, wanted to go to seminary, and I was thinking it would happen in that order. But nevertheless, they sent me there, and my father's advice was, he said, and then it was true. He said, all you have to do is ask them, what have they done in the past? They'll tell you.
Okay.
And he said, and then just acquiesce and say, okay, we'll do it that way this time.
Yeah.
He said, and then next time do it your way. But one thing that he did not say was, if you have issues, come back and ask me.
He did not say that to you.
He did not say that.
Just wanted you to work it out for yourself, huh?
He said, ask them, talk to them, and work with them. And he pushed me on them.
Wow.
And he told me they would be my resources. Your members would be your resources, and not your enemies.
Yeah.
They would be your friends, and talk to them. And that was his advice. And he did not, it took me a while to kind of figure out that he was not counting his experience as something that I should take as the goal, the standard. But he was saying, set your own standard and set it in concert with your members.
With your members. Wow. Yeah. What solid advice. And I can see why your dad was so special to you. The knowledge that he shared that helped you along your way, and particularly when you got to seminary. Tell us about your ITC years. Let me put this picture up here. You remember these folks?
Yeah, I think I remember them. Ethan was the person who stayed across the hall from us, and there's James Robinson, and Steve Fales, and there's Ideen, and I don't know if I recognize the person at the top. I just don't recall.
Okay.
But yeah, Steve and I came from Oklahoma. We both, Bishop Cummings sent us both together. And it was a great experience, and I feel a closeness to I don't know where Robinson is now, but I feel
Yeah.
a closeness to Milton Proctor right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just
And
saw him the other day.
everybody knew the Right Reverend Ether Louise Pitts.
Oh man, we we shared we had one room and she had another room and we had a common restroom. So
Okay.
we were we were up the ladder because
Yeah.
all we had to do was just take care of, our business with ourselves, just the three, my wife, Dolores, and Ether. And as long as we kept things clean, it was fine.
It was fun.
Everybody else had to deal, amen, the commoners.
Yeah. So you and Sister Walker stayed in Phillips?
in the in the office, I think it's in the office that that Dean Brown has now.
Yeah, and because next
Yeah.
to it is a suite as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's because he opens his door and he goes into the restroom.
And
We stay
right.
right there.
That's right.
Yeah, and on our way, we married on I guess it was a Friday night, and packed up that Saturday and left that Sunday morning, I think. And my car, I didn't have enough sense. I didn't realize that if you have a trailer hooked up to a little Mustang, you're going up Lookout Mountain and all these places. You don't put the gas to the, but I was putting pedal to the metal trying to get to
Trying to make that
ITC,
deal.
and actually started a little fire with my car.
Oh my goodness.
So I stopped and put out the fire, and then had to make a decision. I had 5 West Indian guys who pulled over to say, "Would you like for us to help you?"
Wow.
And none of them, and I'm not disparaging, it was hot. It was summertime. It was August.
Yeah.
None of them had on a t-shirt. And I'm from Oklahoma. I'm not used to anybody who has any kind of accent unless it's an Indian,
Yeah.
a Native American.
Right. Right.
So I saw them, but they looked like me.
Okay.
And
Got a little nervous when you saw them.
I was more nervous about the people that didn't look like me.
Yeah.
And I told Dolores, I said, she said, they don't have on shirts. I said, and I was saying the same thing. I said, wow, they're a little scary, a little scary. I said, but look at it this way. We're gonna make the decision to go at the hands of people who look like us, or if we get caught on this mountain at night, we might go by the hands of people who don't look like us.
Yeah.
So we made the decision that if we're going to go, it's going to be at the hands of people who look like us. And man, we had the best time all the way to Georgia. We laughed and talked, and they treated us with the utmost respect, man. Wow. With the utmost respect, and drove and delivered my car right to the doorsteps of the dorm.
Wow.
Right there. Dropped us off, asked us, was it anything else we needed? We exchanged $200.
Okay.
And they said, have a great day. I wish I had taken their names.
Yeah.
But
that was a major test of your faith, I would imagine. Trusting in that process, God sending you help when you need it,
That's right. And you got to figure out, whether or not you're going to just accept the way that's made for you. And I felt that was the way that was made for me, because they knew cars, they knew how to connect my car to their car. They knew it. They knew the whole 9 yards. I mean, they just knew it. And what they were saying sounded a lot like my father. They didn't sound like people who were out to murder folk.
Right.
They sounded like people who knew trades and who had skills.
Yeah.
And I was accustomed to that language because they sounded like the men of that day.
Yes, sir.
And that was my guess, that they would be all right, that you don't get where they are by thieving and robbing. And so they looked good to me, better than what we saw.
Yeah, what an amazing story. Let me just pause for a second because Bishop and Mrs. Gilmore are watching you, and I just wanted to acknowledge them and to let you know?
Oh, well, it's always good. Bishop Gilmore and Mrs. Gilmore blessed the seventh by moving back to the seventh. And they did such a wonderful job when serving out the rest of Bishop Thomas Hoyt Jr.'s
Yes.
term. And we just owe them such a great debt of gratitude for the service that they have rendered to the CME Church at all levels. You can't say enough about those two persons.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, you all, I may not be able to always see who's watching. Some of the messages don't get to me. I missed Bishop Marvin Thomas last week, who was watching. He was watching on a watch party. So let me know if any of the other bishops are watching so we can acknowledge them as well. So you graduated, Bishop, from ITC. Let me see. I think I have that picture of you and Sister Walker, and I think you all have a baby by this time.
Yes, we have Tiffany in our arms, and at the top, you have Dr. John Waters, and somewhere there might even be a picture of Dr. Isaac R. Clarke. John Waters was my Old Testament professor, and I was told not to take his class, and I asked why, and they said he's just difficult and cantankerous and this and that. And there's Dr. Isaac R. Clarke to my right.
Yes. Is that Dr. Mance Jackson as well?
That's Dr. Mance Jackson, the man who scared me to death when I was a teenager at the National Youth and Young Adult Conference.
What happened?
We protested. We locked arms. Steve Fells, myself. Who else should I tell it on? Brother.
Go ahead and call the roll.
Brother Washington. We were all, see, I was young and they were influencing me. No, we all had a little rebel in us.
Yeah.
And so we marched across the stage protesting that, a young person should be allowed to speak at the National Youth and Young Adult Conference. And to make a long story short, when the protest was, I thought about the protest. So I envisioned the protest.
Okay.
What I did not envision was what happens when the protest ends. So when the protest ended, that's when I met Mance Jackson.
Okay.
And that's when I met Bishop Amos. Now, he was my bishop, but I'd never met him before.
Okay.
I met him then.
Right.
And I knew Mance Jackson, he had been around all week.
Sure.
But I met him then. And when I really met those two guys, I was good. And I experienced my first, and this is the honest to God truth, first dose, my first touch in a serious way by the Holy Ghost. I experienced it right there at that conference. And Mance Jackson facilitated that. He scared me straight. Yeah, but Bishop, R. Clarke was my preaching professor.
Okay.
And my Old Testament professor, John Waters, and what they taught and drilled into me never left.
Wow.
Never left.
But what year was that National Youth Conference, Bishop? Do you remember around, or how old were you? Let's put it that way.
I was probably around 14.
Okay.
Around 14, 13, 14.
So that must have been probably around 1970 or so.
That was the one.
Yeah, 1970.
Yep, that was the one. And it was it was good. What they said was good. And I didn't realize, we might have been interrupting a message by Bishop Doyle.
So you interrupted a program that was in process.
We marched in arms across the pulpit and stopped the service.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
None of us were on the program. We took exception to it.
I understand. It's a National Youth Conference. You should have some youth.
That's what we felt.
Right. That's a great story, Bishop. That is a great story. And the other piece of that I hope it didn't fly by those who are listening, because we're in the middle of protesting and marching. What's the end plan? Okay,
Yeah,
you said that folks are protesting in the streets. So what's next when this dies down, as we know it will eventually? What's next? You know.
that's
So I,
right.
yeah, yeah, that's
That's right.
something we have to
Yeah, if they had sent me home, I wouldn't be here
really.
today. Yeah, if they had sent me home, Emma B and JP, if I had got sent home from a national youth and young adult
That would have
conference,
been it, huh?
yeah, yeah, I would have been in somebody's grave. Yeah.
Because they just didn't play that, you know,
No,
sending their son off to a conference for
no,
him to disrupt the program.
no,
No.
no. No.
Ooh,
On
thank
some
God.
levels, I mean, if I had a chance to explain,
Yeah,
maybe they might have been somewhat proud. I mean, there were young people included on the program, but it wasn't enough for us. And
yeah,
so that's who we were at that time.
yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah.
an amazing story. So after graduation, what was next for you? Where did the good Lord and the bishop send you
After
after you graduated from
graduation,
ITC? Yes.
from ITC, I went to Phillips Metropolitan CME Church.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I stayed there from 83 to 2010.
Wow.
And they were a congregation, and I believe I have it right, somewhere around 9 preachers in 6 years before I arrived. So they were, but they had interesting history. This was a congregation that had a split. And
Okay.
and in the meantime, we missed Trinity, my beloved
Okay.
Trinity in
Yes.
Tacoma,
Got to
Georgia.
mention Trinity.
One of the most beautiful congregations and one of the most beautiful people. And I was blessed to baptize people like Paige Perry while I was there. And if I didn't do anything else but that would have made it all worthwhile, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But
Trinity and Toccoa.
that's right. The
Yeah.
McCurdy's, the Hendersons, the Wheelers, the Jarretts, the Bruces, the Pounds, just all my people. But anyway, at Phillips, um, they had a split before I
Okay.
got there, so there were only 3 or 4 people. I mean, if they tell it, there were only a handful of families, maybe two or
Okay.
three families left.
Right.
So they split, but they did something that splits don't normally do.
What is that, Bishop?
They split and then told the church, send us the light bill, send us the oil bill. We're taking up money for the budget, and they're communicating with the presiding elder saying, now when this pastor leaves, we're coming back. But in the meantime, and we know that there are issues here that have not been dealt with. And I'm not in agreement with what they did.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found out what they did, I said, this is a different group here.
Yeah.
They're cut from a different cloth.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so you arrived there in the middle of all of that drama.
Right
And
after it kind of settled down.
right
Yeah.
it, yeah. And you were there for 26 years.
Yeah, maybe 27. And
27.
yeah, so but I knew, I guess I just knew
Right.
that that was the place.
Wow.
I just knew. And they had such great aspirations. We had problems. There were only maybe about 60 people there when I came. And
Okay.
then at one point we had a serious debate, and maybe about 20 people either stopped coming or left. They were upset. I was upset. We were at odds with each other. Bishop
Mhm.
Hoyt, who was Dr. Hoyt at the time,
Okay.
did some mediating, talking to me and trying to help me get my head together. But it was about vision. We were stuck on woundedness and vision, and we needed to get past that, and we did. And when we got past that, then we really started to grow. But his advice was very helpful because he again kind of reminded me of my father.
You're right.
Insisted that I talk to certain people
Sure.
because I had stopped talking,
Okay.
but I started back, and we got on a great path. And when there was a point when that church needed to move, so the congregation was growing, and we needed to move to that building that you pictured earlier, 2550 Main Street. And at that point, when we needed to move, we were looking all over the city. Now, to my left, of that picture, there's a liquor store. And to the right of that picture, there was a drug house.
Okay.
Crack house.
Wow.
So you got a crack house and you got a liquor store. And I drove by that building to go to work every day, 5 days a week. My members tried to impress upon me that would be a place I could look at. And I just make them short. And I told them, I don't want to, but I'll have the trustee chairman look at it. And he looked at it and said, no, it won't work. And then God gave me a dream and said, you pick your address, I pick mine. That's my address. But if you don't go, somebody else will. And so I called a realtor the next day. I don't do a lot of I heard God say unless I heard God say.
Right.
And I knew I heard God say. So I was scared. I got up the next day. I called a realtor. When I called the realtor, he said, building is sold. I said, to whom? He said, a church. I politely, we closed the conversation. I felt badly shattered. And then I remembered, if you don't go, somebody else will. I called a realtor back. I said, hey, man, I want to put in a backup contract. He said, we don't need one. This is a Seventh-day Adventist church. They got money. And I said, he said, bank is good with them. I said, backup contract, man. That's what I'm saying. Backup. I said, what are you asking? He told me. I said, that's what I'm offering. So just put in my backup contract. He did. And about a week later, he called me and he said, man, I don't know how it happened, but they won't take this building. They are upset with one of the tenants, and so they won't take it. And he said, do you still want it? And I said, absolutely. Then I called my trustee chair and I said, man, what's wrong with that building? The reason why I won't work for the church. He says, nothing wrong with the building. You don't want it. And you're the pastor. And if the pastor doesn't want it, it's not going to work. He said, but if you want it, Reverend, it'll work perfectly.
Wow.
And it was that was the most beautiful sanctuary that's one of the most beautiful sanctuaries I've seen. When we put that thing together, nice balcony. Oh, it was stunning. We painted a sky on the top of the building. It was just awesome. It was an awesome place.
Wow.
33,000 square feet. When we got through renting it out at the end of the month, we owed about $2,000 after all of our bills were totaled up.
Yeah.
It's a nice place to be.
Wow. And Reverend Dr. Arinthia Mason says she was a National Youth President around that time when you all were rebelling. Hey, Bishop, somebody posted, listen, somebody said, yeah, Bishop was a low-key rebel. That makes sense. Oh, they coming out the woodworks now, Bishop.
See. I apologize to Reverend Dr. Mason.
Oh boy. But that's a wonderful, wonderful story. And Shamika Page Perry is watching. She wants you to know that. As they call Trinity now, the thrill on the hill. Yes, the thrill on the hill. But anyway, Bishop, so just take a moment. Tell us 27 years as the pastor of one church. You're in a club where there are very few of recent time that have pastored, and led a congregation, for that long. Just tell us about, you had a lot of ministries going. I mean, how in the world did you manage, of course, you and the Lord and with the support of your wife, but to grow the church and to keep it viable and visible? You shared articles in the community, shared articles about your work in the community with the Ministerial Alliance. Just kind of help us preachers understand, what do you do as a pastor for 26, 27 years?
You make it big.
Okay.
Little church doesn't work.
Yeah.
Not for 27 years, because that's not enough for the pastor, nor is it enough for the members. So It has to be big.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be big in terms of membership, but it has to be big in terms of vision and big in terms of reach and influence. Okay. So you have to engage in something that's bigger than yourself. Yes, and sir. Then it has to be a we. We accomplished a lot.
Okay.
but I didn't accomplish anything. But
Okay.
we did accomplish a lot. And the body and many members is the right concept. So what that does is it says to us as preachers, um, and it says to us as members that we must peel the onion, and
Mm.
and that means, and the thing that you're peeling is yourself.
Okay.
You know, the thing that you're getting rid of is yourself, and it's very hard to open up to ministry because I was so used to conducting. I was so accustomed to being at the front. When we did discipleship classes, I had the smallest group, and I was in my office,
Mm-hmm.
you know, teaching people who couldn't find a class.
Okay.
Um, Everybody else had, you know, right spaces in the church and all of
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. But um, you make opportunities available to other people. I spent a lot of time training leaders,
Okay.
just training leaders and sitting there determining we need 50 leaders, we need 60 leaders, we need 70 leaders, we need 100 leaders. People would criticize, why do you have so many local preachers? I'm like, I wish we had about 20 more. I
Mm.
said, because God, why would God call them if we didn't need them?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
so the whole thing was about just employing people and living with a big vision. And you know, I just resized the ring that of Bishop Thomas Lanier Hart Jr., the ring that
Okay.
I wore. I just resized it. For a long time, I just wore it just like it was,
Okay.
and it was too big.
Okay.
And I love that because what it reminded me of, being too big to go on the right finger, what it reminded me of is that's what ministry ought to be, not something you can handle by yourself.
Mm.
If you can do it by your doggone self,
Preach,
you're in the
Bishop.
wrong spot.
Yes, sir.
You're
Yes.
in the wrong spot. But you know, it needs to be so big that you just need, you know, all kinds of help, and that that you're willing to put people around you who can provide it. And then if it's big, then you've got to put people who can carry the weight and
Mm-hmm.
not people who can look the part. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there are a lot
Yeah.
of people who can look the part, but man, in ministry, you need
Yeah.
people who can carry the weight. And when you have people who can carry the weight, and when ministry is bigger than you are, and when you can't proceed by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
when you have to proceed in the context with others, I believe it's Desmond Tutu who put it in an elemental way and said we can only be human together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we can only do ministry together.
Yes, sir.
It's not done alone. So yeah, if you make it big, then every year is an exciting year, and every year is a brand new church, and every year they get a brand new pastor.
Do you think preachers are guilty of trying to carry the weight by themselves?
I know I was.
Okay.
So my critique is not of other people. My critique is of me.
Right.
So I know I was, and I know that was my struggle. And sometimes maybe that's a blinder that I need to pull off, and you could tell me better. But I know I was.
Mm.
I had a hard time giving up things. I had a hard time giving up parts of Bible study and things like that. Now
Okay.
that's a friendship evangelism group, and that's something that a local preacher brought to me. And here again, make it big.
Yes, sir.
Not a program that I brought in, but that's a program that Lawrence Clayton brought in and talked to me and brought material and showed it to me. And it took me a while to finally believe that it would work, but it was about getting, again, make it big. All of the members doing, inviting other people. And all those people there, about 25% of them were invited by other people, but, you know, in the church, and were witnessed to 2 or 3 times by other people in the church.
Mm-hmm.
When the church does stuff like that,
Right.
it changes their whole personality and perception.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing,
And
Bishop.
I'm going on and on and on.
That's
You know,
amazing. No, no, this is good. So 27 years there at Phillips. and so many wonderful programs. Now, this project here, let me put it up. This happened under your leadership as the pastor when you were pastor. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's Phillips Metropolitan Apartments.
Okay.
It was going to be Ida B. Wells Apartments, but we heard little rumors in the community that people said, well, it really doesn't belong to Phillips. So we decided we will name it Phillips Metropolitan Apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And Bishop Helton took a chance, and he allowed us to, he put our 501c3, which was not yet accredited, he brought it in under his umbrella of the annual conference, allowed to be a 501c3, and that's how we got the grant. Otherwise, we would still got it, but we would have had to share it with somebody else.
Right.
But by him doing that, having the faith in us, we didn't have to share it with anyone.
That's amazing. So, Bishop, when did you begin to know? I asked this of each bishop, that it was time for you to offer yourself for the episcopacy. Did someone tap you on the shoulder and say, "You've done well here. It's time"? I mean, what's your story, your road to the episcopacy?
Well, I think a lot of us hear that from people. I heard it from people. Dwayne heard it from people. He and I heard it in our home church.
Okay.
Since we were children.
Right.
We heard that one of you should be a bishop.
Okay.
And I took that with a grain of salt. When I watched Dwayne in his ministry, I didn't just hear it. I said, Dwayne should be a bishop. And so I was kind of committed to that idea and very comfortable with that.
Right.
And then the time came for him to run. And I said, Dwayne, you kind of got to step out there now, and you need to run.
Okay.
And then he said, I believe his exact words were, "No, little brother, that would be you."
Really?
And I stood back a little bit, and I'm saying, Dwayne, they know you. The church knows you.
Yes.
The bishops know you. And not only do folk know you, but people absolutely love you. And I'm like, and you're dripping with talent. Anyway, you're dripping with anointing. I mean, you're one of the baddest preachers on the planet. I'm like, Dwayne, you're pastoring a connectional church.
Mm-hmm.
How often does a family get this opportunity? And I was like, it needs to be you. And he just insisted, it's you. And then he and my brother talked to me, and they said, maybe there's a reason that you were called first to preach.
Okay.
And that probably was a way of them just kicking me out there.
Yeah.
But when that happened in family, we kind of decided that I would go ahead and give a run.
Okay.
Yeah, but family, it happened in family first.
Yeah.
But I will say that I did have bishops who were kind. Bishop Cummings intimated this. Bishop Curry intimated this. Bishop Amos allowed me to serve in ways indicating this. It was Bishop Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop Lindsay just pulled me to the side and said, I'm watching you, and the church is looking at you.
Yes. Yeah.
We need you to be a leader. And there were times when they would ask for $1,000 for this and that, and Bishop Lindsay would come to me. Only one time. After that, I did it. But he came to me and he said, "Why didn't you step up?" And I looked at him and I said, "Bishop Lindsay." And he said, "No, you step up." And I said, "Bishop, no problem." He wasn't my bishop at that time.
Okay.
He said, "No, we're watching you. You step up." And I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir."
Wow.
And so and Bishop Helton, Bishop Helton's candidate was Bobby R. Best.
Okay.
And he had every reason for that to be his candidate. Bishop Hoyt's candidate was James B. Walker, but both of them had love for the other person as well.
Right,
And,
right.
Bishop Helton was as gracious as a bishop could be. I was not his candidate in my words.
Okay.
He never said to me, "You are not my candidate."
Right.
You know, and he never did anything to indicate to me that I was not.
Yeah.
It was just, it made the run easier for Bishop Best and I, that our bishops did not make us compete with one another.
Okay. Okay. And so you offer yourself and you get to the general conference, which was held where? This is let's see, what year is this? 2000. You were elected in 2010.
Elected in 10, ran 6 and 10.
You ran 6 and 10. So
yes.
6, what was a lesson learned after 2006 for you?
Well, 2006, I knew I needed to run. I knew it was a long shot, but I knew I was willing to work.
Okay.
When I didn't get elected, it didn't crush me or devastate me, because I have been to general conferences, you know, many times before.
Right.
I was in the room with Bishop Broomfield when he did not win. And when he did not win, his room adjoined the room with Bishop Coleman, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe I'm not mistaken. He and Bishop Coleman had adjoining rooms. Coleman was elected, and I believe I got this right in my head. I know I do, because Bishop Coleman came through those doors and said, "Ori, don't worry. Don't worry, Ori. It's going to be all right. You're going to get elected. Don't worry." And Fales and I were sitting there watching all of this transpire. Here were two people who ran, and we thought they were running against each other.
Each other, right.
But they were running for the office.
Yeah.
And Bishop Coleman then takes, you know, I believe I got that history right, Bishop Broomfield to Texas, and he is elected from Texas. So I understood that we're CMEs, we make choices.
Yeah.
And even when you get elected, you can't be, when you get elected, you can't just say, "I'm elected, I must be the best one that's out there." When you're elected, it's a grace.
Right.
It's a grace to be able to serve.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So that's the way I saw it. So when the next day after the election, I got up and thanked the people.
Okay.
And let them know I was coming back again. I was not angry.
Yeah.
I was not angry, because I told somebody, I said, the same people that didn't elect me this time are the people that I'm going to need to help me next time. That's it.
And so you went back to Phillips after that?
I went back to Phillips, and I took the largest delegation that had ever gone at that time to Jamaica.
Okay.
To be with Bishop Carter.
Okay.
And to do the work. And we were heavy supporters of his work.
Yeah.
If you're running for you, then good luck to you. But if you're running for the church, God bless you. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
And you accept, if you're willing to accept the church's yes, then you have to be willing to accept the church's no.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And so the next 4 years were good years for you, and then you come back in 2010.
The next 4 years were wonderful years for me. I went back to Phillips. Everything that I said about the church was actually true. And I went back and I had a wonderful time, but then I felt a sense of guilt.
Okay.
Because I did not know what was going to happen in 2010. So I asked Bishop Hoyt to allow me to express to the congregation at the right point.
Okay.
I would not be returning. I didn't feel that it was fair. I saw the first decrease in our finances that I'd ever seen since I'd been there.
Okay.
I saw decreases in membership. We took in a lot of members, but I saw a decrease. When we would go 3 Sundays without taking in a member, that was eye-popping to me. We've gone 3 weeks. Nobody has joined this church. Something is wrong. So I saw a difference, and I felt like it was unfair. So I asked if I could do that, and he said I could. And so
you were prepared to, whether you were elected in 2010 or not, that you knew you would not be back at Phillips uh, to continue serving as pastor?
I felt like they no longer needed a candidate who was running for bishop.
I
They
got
needed a pastor.
a pastor.
Yeah,
Yes,
they needed a pastor.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so 2010, you are elected. What was that experience like for you?
I don't know. Somebody else was in my body.
It was an out
um,
of body experience, huh?
I don't know. I think there are some pictures of me, I believe, doing things that I wish I could take back.
Okay.
Uh, maybe a little over enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Um, but it was stepping into the unknown.
Hmm.
That's what it was.
I
It
can
was
only.
stepping into the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when Bishop Hoyt, that was my up close and personal experience, being close to Bishop and OC.
Yes.
And then they get elected, and I'm helping on his campaign, and I'm so happy he gets elected.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
man got elected. Miss OC got elected. I'm so happy. And then they move,
Oh
and
wow.
then I can't hear from them.
Yeah.
It was depressing. It was depressing. And then I understood some things,
Okay.
about what that office is like.
Yeah.
Even if I called or something like that, he didn't have time to talk. And
Hmm.
I started understanding, a little bit about the level of sacrifice.
Right. Right.
So when I got elected, I knew I was stepping into the unknown,
Yeah.
and not a fear, but just a consciousness.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's my family. That's my two daughters.
Yes. Yes. Beautiful
That's my
picture.
two girls.
And so Sister Walker was ready for the journey, uh, as the wife of an Episcopal leader.
Let me say, Miss Walker is her own person,
Yeah.
and she is not typical by any means.
Okay.
And all during my ministry, I have respected that. And so um, I think that she's good for me being in this office because
Mhm.
she signals to spouses that you can be the person that you are, because you are the person's spouse.
Right.
Um, and that's not a position, quote unquote, that's a relationship. But some people think it's a position,
Hmm.
and they want to assign certain duties to you and things like that. And my wife is just not that person. And so it's for her, um, it was her wondering if she was going to be asked to do all of these speeches and so forth, and I told her she wouldn't. And
Right.
she has been asked, but she's never done that.
Okay. And so very shortly after you were elected, you were named the chairman of the College of Bishops.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and that had to be a signal honor, and the fact that Bishop Hort installed you.
um, that when you're elected bishop, I believe Bishop Jefferson Snorton said, well, she talked about this, the element of surprise, that there are all of these things that happen. I would say it's, my grandfather used to buy us Cracker Jacks. I
Okay.
would say it's likened to a box of Cracker Jacks. With
Right.
every one, there is a surprise inside. And so I saw that I was elected, had no idea that I was going to be the chair of this group. No. No, brother Skip. An honor, yes, but ready? No.
Yeah.
I was not mentally ready. But it was okay. It
Yeah.
was okay. Baptism by fire is
I
all right.
bet. I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so your first Episcopal assignment was in the 8th Episcopal District?
In the ninth.
In the ninth, I'm sorry, in the ninth.
Yes.
Tell us
Yeah.
about the ninth.
That's home. They
Yeah.
sent me home. I was not particularly excited about going home because I had just left home, it felt like, even though it was 30 something years ago. But
Right.
you go to a place where they know all of your warts and all of your blemishes. It's a little daunting. But at the same time, when I went to the ninth, it was like a rebaptism. It was being able to be with people that you knew, being able to be with people that you loved,
Yes.
and being able to serve together and accomplish things together.
Yes.
Um, it was a special blessing.
Oh, I
Yeah,
bet.
it was a special blessing. So I had that concern because I'm a bishop who has only pastored 3 churches.
Okay.
So, and that's unusual for
I was
bishop.
about to ask you, Bishop, how unusual is that you are elected after having pastored 3 churches and then 1 church for 27 years? Do you know whether that has
Uh,
been done before, replicated by any other bishop in our history?
I doubt if that's been done before.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the small number of churches was one thing, but that was kind of echoing what my father did in his ministry, and the the being elected. There are certain gaps that you have because change means something different when you've
Sure.
only
Yeah.
churches.
Yeah.
Over a period of 40 some odd years, you've only been to 3 places. Change means something different for you. So
Right.
I wondered how that change would be accepted in the ninth. But I have to say, they welcomed me with open arms.
Hmm.
I had that hesitation, but when you're a bishop, you go where you're sent, just like a
Right.
pastor.
Yeah.
And you might have hesitation, but you get over it.
Yes, I'm sure. You mentioned your family, your large extended family. I wanted to put this picture up because it's obviously the Walkers are very close.
Yeah, we have a closeness. It's not all based on communication and so forth. It's a lot of it's just based on blood that we're
Hmm.
so, a lot of double first cousins mixed in there, and um, marriages have lasted a long time, for a lot of us. So
Right.
brother-in-laws get almost looked upon like brothers, and sister-in-laws get to be sisters, and so it's that kind of thing that goes on. But there's my oldest sister who's sitting in the middle. That's Marie. She turned um, she turned 80. I don't think she would mind me saying that.
Hmm.
And I went down to see her, and I didn't get to see her, but I wasn't mad. She was late getting there, but I said to the people who were there, I said, my sister, just like she has her hair done there, she's
Right.
getting her hair done, she's getting the nails done, she's having her eyebrows worked on. I said, her sister's 80. She's saying to me, like, hey, who asked you to be bishop and got a
That's right.
schedule? I'm turning 80.
Got to
So,
love
so
it.
yeah, that's my sister. So that's my family. Yeah.
So Bishop, you were in the ninth for 8 years?
I was in the ninth for four
For
years.
4 years. Oh, okay.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right. And then after that, you were
I went home
assigned.
again.
Went home again?
I went home again. I went to the
Okay.
seventh.
To the seventh, right.
And I
Yeah.
didn't feel ready again. I was
Oh,
like, wait a minute, Lord, what are you saying to me? I keep going home.
wow.
So it was, I had concerns about that. But you go where you're sent.
Right.
Now, and I hope people are hearing this correctly. Uh, what I'm going into now is just the emotional piece of it.
Okay.
This is not the ministry piece. This is not a personal piece. It's not a relational piece. This is talking about what goes on within the person. So
Sure.
you're talking to me, and I'm talking to you about what goes on within me.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that and wondering, is that good for people? Because here again, I'm going to a place where people know all of my warts and all of my, blemishes and all of that. But then you sit back and you think about it for a while. In order to be elected bishop, people have to know you, and we all have warts. We all have bruises. We all have scars. We all have blemishes. Those who have none, God bless them. But
Mm.
real people have them.
Yes, sir.
So as a bishop, you have to serve in spite of them.
That's right.
And you have to serve to the best of your ability. And it's good that your warts are known.
Mm-hmm.
That's a beautiful thing, that people know your warts. Wow,
Yeah.
there's Bishop Cunningham.
Yes, indeed, Bishop Cunningham.
Yeah.
And so, Bishop, just a couple more things. You've been so kind and patient. Um, what would you say to those who are aspiring or offering themselves for the episcopacy, as we are, as particularly in the time that we're living in right now? What would you say to those persons who are aspiring? What would you offer to them by way of advice or just some insight in their journey?
I can only talk about, you've had some people on before me. You've had a few senior bishops. And so those levels of experiences far eclipse my own. But what I would say is this whole business of becoming a bishop is really an offering of oneself and
Mhm.
discovery of what that journey is all about. On the one hand, politics is by its nature selfish, isn't it? Because you're not seeking so much to have the best person elected, you're seeking to be elected.
Yes.
So that's an honest piece of the journey. So it's why are you seeking to be elected and not seeking to get the best person? So your thing is you're seeking to give your best
Mm-hmm.
and an opportunity to give your best. And I just pray that we never lose sight of that. Not being the best, but seeking to give the best that we have. I think that's how you become excellent. You
Mm-hmm.
give the best of what you've got to this situation, and that's what the church deserves of us. Um, that's what the church expects of us, and that's what the
Mm-hmm.
church needs to give our best. And I'm I'm praying for each one of them. I believe we have excellent candidates
Mm-hmm.
who will do a fantastic job. Um, so it's one thing to campaign, but
Yes.
it's another thing to be.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Being is the challenge.
Amen, Bishop. We're in our 150th year, 150 years of serving God's kingdom through the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. Would you offer some words to preachers, well, young preachers particularly, about this journey? And where do you see our church right now? Through the lens of a bishop is certainly different than through the lens of a pastor. But where do you see our church going? And also help pastors to understand really what they have been called to do during this season, please.
Um, where do I see well, you say a lot there.
Yeah.
I'm from Boley, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I'm from um, Native American territory, Indian territory, a mission field. Um, I'm the first bishop elected from that mission territory,
Yes, sir.
the first one from the ninth. Um, so I guess the first thing that I would say is that the church, when it makes an investment, like it did in places like Oklahoma,
Hmm.
before Oklahoma was a state,
Right.
the CME Church was investing in the territory. Um, the first church building erected in Boley, Oklahoma, was a CME Church.
Yes.
That's the kind of thing. The CME Church invested in schools in Boley, Oklahoma,
Hmm.
for 20 years.
Wow.
So, um, in order for the church to be in order for us to continue to aspire to the great path on which our foreparents put us on, we have to be willing to have that same kind of vision.
Okay.
Theirs was big, and they saw themselves in territories where they were not. Wow,
Yeah,
that looks like Boley High School.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
they saw themselves where they were not. They push to make a difference, and that's where we are. just let the church be the church. And I'm praying that pastors will continually see what it means to open up to mission at home as well as mission abroad, and that pastors will continue to open up to the social as well as the religious. It's a little disturbing when I listen at what some of the leaders of our movement are saying today, and they see as one of the biggest enemies of the movement the church.
Yes.
I believe that is a self-serving comment that they make, and I believe it's very divisive, but we can't smear them.
Right.
What we have to do is make sure that we're on the forefront, at the cutting edge, the tip of the spear. That's the way the church is designed to be. It's not designed to be a butter knife. Man, the church is designed to be the tip of the spear. That's who we are. And so we go first, and we take the risk, and we take the chances, and we advocate for our people. I heard one person criticize the African American church and criticize our movement as progressives by saying that you're the only group that ever takes up the cause of the least and puts the George Floyds, who might have a criminal record, above all these other people. And I'm saying, yes, that's exactly who we are. But we not only do that, we bring up those who are at the top as well.
Yes.
But no, we ain't never going to forget the least. Not ever. That's who we are.
Yes,
George
sir.
Floyd in the church should always be somebody. And
Yeah.
in the Black community, always be somebody. And so I think as long as preachers are doing a good job of that, what I see being done all across this nation, the way I see these pastors running these churches, the way I see them, just the nimble and the agility to go from in-person services to, they're doing conference calls and Zooms and Hangouts and all this kind of stuff. I see in the pastors this is what I see. In the book of Esther, she was called for the most difficult point in Jewish history, one of the most difficult points in Jewish history. Here we are at the most difficult point in American history. Here we are, 80% of Black churches, the doors are closed.
Yes, sir.
This is as rough as it gets, my brother.
That's
and
right.
Brother Skip, Dr. Skip, God has called you, and he's called pastors just like you.
Yes, sir.
Not for just any day.
That's right.
But for this day.
Yes, sir.
And so I join with what I hear God saying. And God is saying, Brother Walker, this is the baddest group on the planet. he said, you might look at him and you might say, I don't know what we got here. He said, but I'm the one who calls.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, these are the baddest brothers and sisters on the planet. And when it comes to a time when the church, 80% of the doors of the church are closed, God has said, when he's dropped it in my spirit, this is what I hear. I hear God saying, this group can handle it. And I'm all to be able to serve in this time because I know who I'm serving with.
Yes, sir.
I know who I'm serving with. So hats off to you, pastors. Hats off to you, officers, because that's who I believe God is saying you are.
Well, Bishop, I think, I know that your grandparents and your parents are just beaming and sending tremendous love and light to you. And I just know that they are just so delighted, that you're leading the church that they love so dearly, and that you are inspiring pastors to continue, pastors and lay, to continue to reach their potential. And it has been a signal honor for me to spend some time with you today. And all of us have gotten a chance to know your story a little better. And thank you. And this is what I want to say this, and I get a lot of wonderful, comments, but I'm so grateful to you, you bishops for just being so transparent. Not that you aren't, but we see you, in your Episcopal hat, and managing, your churches and your pastors. But we get a little chance to delve inside of you, and it really helps us, those of us pastors who are just trying to make some sense out of this journey that God has called us to. So I sincerely appreciate you tremendously, and thank you so much for your time and effort and all of the wonderful memories that you have shared with us. You have been an absolute blessing to us. And I'm grateful to God for the opportunity to sit and to share. And I want to tell you before I let the bishop have the final word, on tomorrow, as we go into Father's Day week, tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I will be with the family of Bishop Lockett. They will spend some time with me sharing their memories about Bishop Lockett. And I invite all of you to join me on tomorrow at 8 p.m. And then on Tuesday, I got a double whammy. I'll be with the family of Bishop Joseph Johnson and the families of Bishop Thomas Hoyt. And so we invite you to share with us. We will start at 7 with the Johnson family, and then at 8 o'clock with the Hart family. And then on Wednesday, I'll be with the family of Bishop Graves, and looking forward to sharing memories with the members of that wonderful family. And so we're going to continue. And then next Sunday, which is Father's Day, we have a triple threat, as I call them. Next Sunday, I will be spending time with the families of Bishop Dotsy Isom, Bishop Norris Curry, and Bishop Richard Bass. And so that is our Father's Day trio. And we'll be sharing with them about their memories of their father as well. Bishop Walker, God bless you, and thank you so much, sir, for this time and for inspiring. So I can't keep up with the messages that are coming in, and I didn't get a chance to post all of them. And let me thank Senior Bishop and the College of Bishops for their support, and to you and Bishop Brown for your continued support. And Dr. Duhart, I love you and appreciate you so much for your support. Would you like to just say any closing words, Bishop?
Well, I join you in thanking Dr. Duhart and others, my colleagues. God bless you, and all of my brothers and sisters in the CME Church. Thank you for what you do for Jesus Christ. I look at the CME Church, and people talk about its size and what is it in relationship to this church or
Yes.
another church, another denomination. And I always say that we remind me of the Celtics and the Lakers. You don't just look at the building, you look at the rafters. And
Wow.
so when I look up in the rafters, I see Miles College and Lane and Texas, and you know what I'm saying? I see Payne, and so I see ITC, I see Phillips School of Theology.
Yes, sir.
I see a Collins Chapel Hospital that's coming back. I see missions in Africa, and I see missions across the world now. Yeah. So in the rafters, they tell us who we are. And so God bless you and all of you for another 150 years in Jesus' name. And thank you for providing such a valuable service to the CME Church.
Thank you, Bishop. God bless you. This ends our conversation with Bishop James B. Walker. God bless you, and hopefully you can join me on tomorrow at 8. Have a super day.
Thank you. Thank you.